The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
We're indeed tonight fortunate to have a very distinguished person with us this evening. We have Dr. Watson from the interim president of Mississippi State University that is here with us, and he would like to say a word or two to the board and to the people that are here. Come on up, Dr. Watson.
Where do you want me to go?
You can go right there in the center there if you feel comfortable sitting down, or
I'm not under oath in this matter. Mayor and board, I just wanted to come by and tell you some of the things that happened this weekend. We had 4 commencements over a 4-day period. 2,000 young men and women left Starkville, but the thing that impressed me the most were the mothers and dads that came up to me during that process and told me how much they appreciated this community. The merchants in the community particularly made reference to the religious community, and their kids had a chance to be part of the church families here. And they also were quick to point out how they had watched over 4 years in Starkville growing and projecting the kind of image that they hoped to see, and they were pleased about the image of this becoming a good retirement community. And I thought that said a lot of things, and I wrote a letter that was sent to Starkville Daily yesterday. I'm assuming it'll get in there this week, that expresses those things to the community and to those of you that make that happen. That's pretty exciting to me to hear him say that. And plus, I got to hug a lot of mamas and kiss a lot of babies in the process too. So, but it was a really a good deal, and that's what universities are all about. You hate to see the kids go, but at the same time, hopefully they're going out in the communities in this state for a large part. From all of the data that's being presented to me now, it looks like we're on track for another big growth year out there. And of course that will impact the community in a way. Right now we're projecting about 2,700 freshmen and transfers coming in, which could push us close to 18,000 when we get to the start date. So that'll add a lot to the here. One of the other things I wanted to comment on is we're coming up on budget time again, but last year you were willing to put in the horse park allocation, some infrastructure money. And with the little that you put there, we still took that and were able to couch that as a positive partnership and leverage that to an additional $800,000, which we've now been able to take all of the soil that was in the middle of the track where you couldn't see all the way around. That's been removed. We've added 100 additional RV spots out there. And so that with that new venue part of it open, it's going to attract that many more things in here the next year. So I hope as you look at your investments, as you build a budget, though, you think of that opportunity where we can leverage again. The only other thing I had, board, we finally found out something at the university the mayor does real well. And I'd like to share this with you all, and you can pass it down till he gets it. When it gets to him, here's what it is. When the circus was in town, the mayor was riding the elephant. He didn't know we were taking his picture.
you ain't ridden anything unless you've ridden an elephant. Let me tell you.
I tell you what, Charlie Weatherly's here. I say, he's our main rosarian. He's always telling us how to build a better soil for roses. I had been down there and got me some of that big compost pile that Brickley has invited all of you to kind of help yourself. She called me after the circus and said, look, next time you come, it's got elephant poop in there, so you'll have supersized tomatoes.
Thank you, Dr. Watson, and if the board in the future be of any help, let us know.
Thank you to you and to know the university's in partnership with it.
Thank you, sir. I understand you were fixing to go to one of the receptions for Dr. Birchfield. We have approval of the official agenda. We do have consent items on there. Mr. McLaurin, would you like to go through the consent items, please?
I can, Mr. Mayor. For your consideration for possible inclusion in a consent agenda, we would offer the following on page 2, under Board Business, Item A.
Before you do that, just for clarification purposes, would you include that its address is 100 and 106?
Certainly. Address is 100 and 106.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then under departmental business, airport, items 1, 2, 3 at the bottom of the page, 4 and 5 at the top of the next page. Under building codes and planning department, items 2 and 3. Under office of the city clerk at the bottom of the page, item 2, and then at the top of the next page, items 3 and 4. Under courts, item 1. Under electric department, items 1 and 2. Under engineering and streets, item 1. The next page, under fire department, all 4 items. Under personnel, all 5 items, 4 on that page, 1 at the top of the next page. Police department, item 1. Public services, items 2 and 3 and 4 have been deleted. Item 5, the next page, items 6, 7, and 8.
With those items on consent, do I hear an approval of the official agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It brings us to the approval of the minutes of the City of Starkville Board meeting of March the 18th, 2008.
Mayor, I'd move approval of the minutes of our recess meeting, March 18th, 2008.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. It brings us down to comments by the mayor and the Board of Aldermen, and Rodney, I think you indicated to me that you'd like to make a comment in regard to the water situation.
I'd like to compliment Doug Devlin and his water repair crew on repairing a leak at Chestnut and Beach that has been very aggravating for the local residents and for his department as well. And finally, they came up with a master plan, and it's holding. Not seen one drop since then, so we do appreciate you working on that for us, and everyone thanks you. And tell your crew, too. We drive real slow when we go by it. So, thank you.
The night, starting at 6:30, we have a reception honoring our superintendent who's been here for about 4 years, I believe, and that he is leaving. And they seem to have those things every time we have a board meeting. So we'd like to commend Dr. Birchfield at his time spent here at Starkville, Mississippi, and we wish him well in the future.
Mr. Mayor, along those lines, I think it would be appropriate for the board to issue an order on the minutes commending Dr. Birchfield for his service here, his contributions to the Starkville school system, and wishing him well in his new position, and I would so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. It brings us to 2 proclamations that we have tonight. I've asked PC if he would read them. Mr. Weatherly, you might want to come up here to the front because this is pertaining to the claiming May as the Housing American Month in the city of Starkville. And when he reads this, you might want to tell us who your members are of the board there, when he gets through.
Try to think of
And
Write
probably
it down.
best, Charlie, that you sit down, this is a long one. Housing America Month in Starkville, Mississippi. Whereas, for more than 70 years, it has been the policy of this nation, under the U.S. Housing Act, to promote the general welfare of the nation by employing its funds and credit to assist the several states and their political subdivisions to remedy the unsafe and unsanitary housing conditions and the acute shortage of decent, safe, and sanitary dwellings for families of lower income. Whereas, public housing is home to over 2 million people, more than 40% of whom are children. Whereas, the Starkville Housing Authority was organized on September the 7th, 1955, pursuant to the Housing Act of Mississippi by local commissioners W.C. Thomas, W.J. Landers, Harry Smith, Robert G. Weir, and temporary chairman A.L. Goodman. Whereas, a cooperation agreement between the Starkville Housing Authority and the City of Starkville was adopted on April 20, 1956, making provisions for the construction and operation of clean, safe, and affordable housing units for families of lower income in our city. Whereas, the first housing units of the Starkville Housing Authority were completed and ready for their residents on September 20, 1958. These units being 40 units at West Pecan Acres and 40 units at Westside Drive and Zuber Street locations. 34 units were later added at East Pecan Street, 16 units were added at Alfred Perkins Street, and subsequently 30 special units for the elderly were conducted at the McDowell Street site. The last 84 units were added at the Reed Road location, making a total of 244 units in the complex as it exists today. Whereas the day-to-day operation of the Starkville Housing Authority has been managed over the past 50 years in a very efficient and responsible manner by 4 dedicated executive directors, Edward F. McDowell, Ray Runnels, Floyd Johnson, and currently Rebecca Carlisle, all of whom have contributed to the authority's excellent record of accomplishment, including citations as a high performer for each of the last 20 years. Whereas, the following local citizens of the Starkville community have served one or more terms as commissioners of the Starkville Housing Authority over the past 50 years, and in this volunteer role brought their vision, energy, leadership, enthusiasm, and support to the organization, namely Ed Brown, Brian Baker, William V. Byers, Larry Cohen, Jack Day, Gilbert Forsman, A.L. Goodman, Robert Gunn, John W. Guyton, Ivan L. Hand, Gene Hansen, James Henry, Annie Johnson, Eddie Jones, Tom Jones, Felder Josie, W.J. Landers, Robert W. Massey, Charles S. McElroy, Paul Millsaps Jr., Mrs. Thomas H. Mosley, Tom Nelson, Annie W. Nix, Frank C. Page, Alice King Parker, Homer G. Ritchie, Malcolm Roseberry, William R. Runnels, Harry Smith, James H. Smith, E. H. Staggers Sr., Kirby Stedman, Terry Thomas, W. C. Thomas, Charles Weatherly, Ed White, and Robert G. Weir. Whereas the aforementioned executive directors and commissioners have maintained, upgraded, renovated, and managed these valuable housing assets in a responsible and professional manner over the past 50 years, and have simultaneously added for the benefit of the housing residents whom they serve, child care centers, security and police services, transportation services, home ownership transitions, and other outreach programs as needed. Whereas the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials has partnered with 20 housing-related national organizations, including the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, in declaring May as Housing America Month, part of a year-long national campaign to inform the public and decision makers of the critical need to address the nation's housing and community development concerns. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of Starkville, Mississippi, which has over a period of many years endeavored to address affordable housing and community development needs and has been successful in doing so using a combination of local, state, and federal resources, hereby endorses the Housing America campaign, its goals, objectives, and purposes, and in doing so in this 50th anniversary year since the opening of the Starkville Housing Authority, recommits itself to meeting the affordable housing and community development needs of this community. And Mr. Mayor, I would move adoption of this resolution declaring Housing America Month in Starkville, Mississippi.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did that take the wind out of you, I hope?
Just for a moment. Ms. May, I assume, Ms. Tyndall, that Mr. Weatherly can get a
Yes.
copy of the resolution once it is all properly typed and sealed and stamped and so forth.
Okay, well, you said to mention our current board
Yes.
is composed of Terry Thomas, who is chairman,
Right.
Dr. James Smith, Mr. Jack Day, myself, and Larry Cohen was our recently added member. And we thank you, and we thought it on the 50th anniversary since the founding of our residents down there in Pecan Acres and other places, as were mentioned in the resolution, it would be appropriate to maybe cite these words and cite these citizens who have been involved in it. We thank you very much for your
Thank you
support.
for wanting us to do it. This brings us down to the next proclamation, and it's not nearly as long. Of May as the National Bike Month in the city of Starkville. We have anybody here from Starkville Motion? How you doing tonight?
Fabulous, how are you?
And Mr. McLaurin is gonna read it as well.
Okay.
Whereas, for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans, and whereas today, millions of Americans engage in bicycling because it is a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and provides quality family recreation. Whereas, the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. Whereas, Starkville in Motion and independent cyclists throughout our city are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education in an effort to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities for all. Whereas, on Friday, May 20, Starkville in Motion, Bulldog Cycling, and the Starkville Central Neighborhood Foundation will celebrate National Bike to Work Day by encouraging the citizens of Starkville to bike or walk to work. Now, therefore, the mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the city of Starkville do hereby proclaim May 2008 as Bike Month and call upon the people of Starkville to recognize the importance of bicycle safety and be more aware of cyclists on our streets and highways. And again, Mr. Mayor, I would move adoption of this proclamation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. At this time, it brings us to citizen comments.
Ms. Mayor, just
Yeah,
one other thing here. The board will remember that since one of our recent meetings and the adoption of a modified burn permit, we have had a major burn within the city of Starkville, and I thought it might be appropriate to ask Chief Mann how this went. Were there any problems? Does it appear that the rules and regulations that we have adopted are helping the situation?
Mayor and Board, I'm pleased to inform you tonight that it went very well. We monitored the burn. Stuart Davis did exactly as he told you he would do that night. The burn went off very, very smoothly. Allowing the material to lay and dry for the 2 weeks, I think is the key to the new burn ordinance that we've got. And I surveyed the neighborhood people were walking, and many of them were within 300 yards of the burn and never even knew it was going on. It went off very well.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you,
Chief Vance.
Roger.
I don't know what day they want it, if they want it on like Friday or whatever, but that's a Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. The city attorney points out that in the proclamation on, the declaring of, the bike month, there's a discrepancy between the day and date. This says Friday, May the 20th. He says that is a Tuesday,
It's actually Friday the 16th.
the 16th. So if we would make that correction in the, proclamation, so Friday the 16th.
Is that agreeable with everyone in regard to the motion? We just make
Make that correction.
clerical. That brings us up to citizens' comments. You got any comments tonight, Alvin?
Good evening, Mayor and Board. My name is Alvin Turner, in Ward 7. The citizens just have a couple of concerns, and they're kind of heated about their concerns, and one is the city clerk. She has a lot of responsibility, and they feel like that if you give respect, you get respect. The second concern of the citizen is the traffic light on Reed Road. A lot of people, they still short patient, and they do not know what's the problem. Those are two concerns of the citizen.
Alvin, there are two traffic lights on Reed Road. You talking the one at West Side Drive?
The one that right there, nursing home,
Yeah, West Side Drive.
yeah,
Okay.
that one.
Mr. Hathaway, I'm sure will look at that. Any other citizens with comments?
Good evening. My name is Thomas King, and I live on Rock Hill Road. I sent the board a email on yesterday about my water that's running in front of my home. I brought the pictures that I told her that I left on the email. Could I give those to the board?
Sure.
What it is there's a broken water main there. We're going into our second year with this problem. There's the cover that's off, and it's just running out.
Just pass it down.
It's causing I've got a problem with the children that catch the bus in front of my home. I pick up trash in front of my house because I live right just past the city line here, where Rock Hill and Starkville started. And it's becoming a problem because of the mosquito infestation, and the water's just sitting there. It's turning into like a real bad quagmire, like a swamp. And when the guys came by to clear off the electrical line, it got much worse.
Okay.
So that's why I was bringing it to the board. I've talked to the Rock Hill Water Association about it, and they don't seem to have the means to get it done. So this is my next option.
Well, that's out of our jurisdiction, to just be honest with you. If they're losing the water on it, of course, the problem that is running on the city situation is possibly our resolve. We'll discuss with Mr. Devlin where we are with that. Thought we were in process of buying that association. Is that right, Doug?
No, sir,
Not this one.
Okay,
Well,
but,
we're bound with about 50 of them around there.
50. Well, that's why I brought it to the board, because we had gotten a notice that we were going to be incorporated into the city limits. So this is, like I said, this is my last option. When I cut the yard, I can't cut in that area right there because of the way the water just standing there. And it's just growing up, and I have to put on wader boots to get out with the weed eater periodically just to keep it down low enough to avoid having getting all out of hand.
We will let Ms. Brule discuss it tomorrow at our staff meeting, and we will look at options, and we'll get back with you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Yes. Do you need those?
Yeah, well, can we have these? We'll pass around the staff meeting.
All right, thank you.
You had a citizen's comment?
Hello, board and mayor.
citizens. I'm gonna sit down.
Please.
I'm quite excited about the city wanting a conference center. I know the mayor talked about it in his campaign speech. He said he could do it for a couple million or something. I don't know what the number was.
Did I say something like that?
I don't remember the number. You probably better than I.
I actually believe that was a police department.
We could talk about that too. And I think the area needs one. I've been associated with professors that had conferences. They brought them to New Orleans instead, maybe to Philadelphia as a second choice. And I'd like to see those conferences come to Starkville. Of course, we're going to need a little bit more airport capacity to go with it. And I think the university is looking at 300 to 500 attendee conferences. So when I go to a conference, I know the key thing, and I do travel on the university funds to at least 3 conferences a year the last 5 years. The most important thing about a conference is the conference quality hotel. Usually it's either Marriott, Sheraton, Hilton, Hyatt. Want a quality hotel like that, or maybe a Westin if it's in a place like Los Angeles. If this group does not bring in a conference quality full-scale hotel, they will fail. And whoever holds these bonds will be left with them. I've looked at this building. I've talked to the university administration about it. I've thought about it. I think a shopping center with what the building has now, put boutique stores, maybe add an anchor to each end, would be a better use for that building. It's a poor site for a conference center because it has basically 4-lane roads on all sides of it. A 4-lane road is like a river to a developer. It's something you cannot cross easily. I think it will hurt the Cotton District because you'll go to one side of Russell Street or the other side. It is not a friendly street for pedestrian crossing, and I don't think the mayor would like to see the Cotton District split in two that way. I don't know if he would or not. But without a conference hotel, Bobo and Associates, they built a Westin across from the FedEx Center. They looked at the site and said it's not a good site for a top quality hotel. Mrs. Management looked at the site, said the same thing. I've brought several other hotel investors to be partners in a hotel at the intersection of Highway 12 and 82. They highly prefer that site because it has visibility to 82 and 12. Everybody that's proposed a new hotel in this area that's upscale is building on that corner. I'm willing to bet that almost every upscale hotel built in the next 20 to 40 years in this town will be built at that corner. So that's all I say. I hope they're bringing in a top-notch hotel, which I find very difficult to believe, knowing the people who are hoping. Mississippi Management's a 50-year-old franchising company, and I trust their judgment. Bobo and Associates have just finished the Westin. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizen comments? Brings us down to, there are no public appearances tonight. There's no mayor business. Brings us down to board business. First item on the board business is a consent. It brings us down to consideration of a resolution requesting that the Mississippi Board of Trustees of State of Higher Institution of Higher Learning consider and make it public. It's deliberations regarding the new president for Mississippi State University. Is this your information, Richard?
That's me.
Okay.
I'd be glad to touch on it. I really wish that the whole board had been here to hear this tonight, and so I'm going to talk about it some, but then bring it back up for a vote when they're able to be here so that the whole board can look at it. But it's a resolution that I included in your packets, and it's a little bit unique of its type because it's a joint resolution where I'm also in the process of talking to the County Board of Supervisors and trying to get their support. And just kind of as an aside, I hope that this board will consider more joint resolutions in the future as an effort to work more closely with our county. But my main goal in this was just simply to make a statement of encouragement to go towards the IHL to help promote a truly open, transparent search process in the ongoing issue of getting a new president at MSU. Normally, it's not my policy to kind of get involved in the policies and procedures of other organizations. However, I do feel like we have a vested interest in who is selected as our next president at MSU. And so all I simply want to do is to try to encourage a process that will promote the best possible candidate. This is merely a suggestion. Once, if passed, it would go to the IHL, then ultimately it would be up to them to decide what to do with it, if anything. So it's just something I'd like you to kind of read over, consider, think about, and then when the rest of the board is here, I can bring it back before us, hopefully vote for it.
Okay, so basically it's for our information tonight, and we'll come back later.
Correct.
Okay, the next item is consideration of sweeping of Highway 12 to the Highway 25 bypass to Spring Street. And I think part of the problem, Rodney, in regard to that is that that's state highway.
It is state highway, and the city does have permission to perform this service on the state highway with no type of reimbursement. MDOT will, within 24 hours, provide a truck with a driver and an arrow board on top of it, following our street sweeper, as they do in Columbus and Tupelo, for us to clean our own street. If we ask them to do it, they'll bring a broom down here, blow it up on the curb. They do not have the equipment to do it like it needs to be done.
Does this take board action, or is this something that we could just administratively do?
Well, we will need to do some rescheduling, because Monday through Friday is, well, I talked to Doug, pretty much full right now, so we'd have to reschedule.
But this is something that could be worked out administratively, Doug, you think? You don't want the board up here dictating to you.
For another entity.
Okay, well, all right, Rodney, make a motion.
Okay, well, I move that we include Highway 12 from the 25 bypass to Spring Street, cleaning the curbs, the center of the section, center of the street, and all of the intersections from end to end with the street sweeper. And it may take more than one pass to get it all.
Probably the first time.
Second.
Well, motion is second. Any other discussion?
Alderman Lincoln, I would just suggest adding the board finding as fact that engaging in this cleaning procedure adds to beautification, health, safety, welfare of the community.
Okay, that would be good too. Okay. Yep.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye with the addition. All those opposed, nay. The next item is consideration of a resolution supporting tax implement financing. Lucian, where are you? I thought I saw you back there. Y'all want to come up and give us a presentation? I'll get you in and out tonight quicker than we did the last time.
Mayor, members of the board, what's before you today is consideration of an intent to issue tax increment bond financing on a proposed project for the city of Starkville. This is just a preliminary step in the process of issuing tax increment financing bonds. You will be asked at a later date to consider a tax increment financing plan that will get into details of the kind of revenue to be produced by the proposed project and also the type of financing that will be done.
Yes.
Basically, this procedure tonight just enables the developers to go to market to try to attract businesses to locate on the proposed site. And you will have other opportunities to approve. There will be public hearings on the TIF financing plan at a later date. And ultimately, if the county agrees to participate with the city, they will have to approve a similar plan as well as entering into an interlocal agreement between both the city and the county. And be happy to try to answer any questions. The developers are here tonight to maybe share with you what the plans for this proposed site are all about. And I think we'll answer questions that you have about what type of development we're talking about.
And the board members have questions to ask the gentleman about this?
Let's see what they.
Let's see what you got, guys, because I know that we would encourage our press to get it correct.
All right, let's, you mind if we sit over here so we can.
No, we don't mind at all.
And this is, it's really good in light of the comments that were made. I guess we can bring everybody into the full picture of the magnitude of this development that we are trying to do for the city of Starkville and for Mississippi State University and for the Octavia County. But this is roughly 25-acre development that encompasses the Ergon piece. I own this corner piece where the old Burger King and Cinema, Brooks Holstein and my partner and I do. And the centerpiece is owned with the Cooley Building with the university. We have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the university about leasing this property and turning the Cooley Building into a conference center, hooking a full-service national hotel to it that handles the conference center, and hooking on part of this with condominiums that can be leased or bought. This is and the other part, and I'm gonna let Brooks tell you about this project as far as in a big scheme, because he can tell you about all the components. It's a project that's going to completely transform the city of Starkville, Mississippi State, and Octavia County. It's gonna pull all of it's going to be next to the heartbeat of this region, which is Mississippi State.
I'm Brooks Holstein. I'm the co-developer with Mark, and thank you for letting us talk to you this evening. I'd like to just share some initial comments so that you know that your public servants have worked hard to try to get us to this point so that the community can understand the scope and magnitude of this development and how I think it'll help the city, the county, and the university. The total size of the development is 950,000 square feet. That's equivalent in size if you've been to Bonita Lakes or Barnes Crossing in Tupelo. Our total investment will be $155 million, and we have done projects of this size and magnitude before. What really drove us to the site was we initially identified, Mark had put this piece under contract, and we, quite honestly, looked at the property and looked at the size of the retail and the quality of the retail and the service of the community, and we recognized that it was underserved, and there was a dynamic growth of the university in a direction, quite honestly, that we felt like was heading in a way that could really move the university, Starkville, and the county in a very dramatic new direction. And we wanted to contribute to that. We saw the Cooley Building, and honestly, Ergon was the first group that identified the Cooley Building and its historical significance and value as a National Historic Landmark. So we really took the concept that Ergon had developed and just took it to a new level. I've had the good fortune of working with Kupkovic Architects, and they are nationally recognized as one of the best mixed-use architects in the nation. And we came up with a concept that we introduced initially to the university and later to the city, and we're proud to bring it out to you this evening. The retail component will be about 125,000 square feet, and it's set in a promenade type of setting, which has a center courtyard here. It will have 2 anchor department stores, and we're working on trying to also get a 52,000 square foot movie theater. But the important part has been very interesting to us. Most of the time, the smaller retailers that will be on the first floor of these vertical high-rise buildings here, they'll have both residential as well as office space, has been the interest in the conference and meeting center. You know, one of the things that, we're better listeners than we are probably planners. We met with the university and some significant things came out. The city and the county was losing every sporting event, every SEC sporting event. The athletes couldn't stay in the town. They have to stay in a full-service hotel, which means they can't stay in the city, including your own home teams. So we immediately identified that as a component, an absolute necessary component to make the conference center a viable facility, but we also recognized that it was critical to serve the needs of the community that's not being met now. Equally important, we learned also from Ergon the demand of a price point of condos that was already a demand in the market. So we put this and combined it to end up with a condotel and full-service hotel that could be managed, co-managed by the same owner. We've been in negotiations and discussions with one of the largest and oldest hotel development and management companies in the nations. So we really didn't go into this without really doing a lot of research and planning. The significant part about the Cooley building, though, is it's two 35,000 square foot floor plates. The second story, if you've never been on there, is really the most amazing part of the building. It's got an open light system, and it just becomes a tremendous office space. So the first floor can be used as a convention center. The second floor can be used as office. Most developers come in the community and you say, well, what are they doing here in terms of making this facility work? And we put what we think is a tremendously unique opportunity on the table. We committed in our letter of understanding with the university, excuse me, that we would, at our expense, remodel the Cooley facility at our sole cost and expense. We would also replace this physical facility in terms of size and its service use on property owned by the university, somewhere else on the university's property. Because it's also a historical landmark, it qualifies for historic tax credits. So Mark and I agreed that we would donate any tax credit proceeds back to the university to buy down the cost of this development. We think that's a significant commitment on our part to the development. For that, we have worked out other details yet to be formalized with the university and IHL to make economic sense for us. We have really accomplished an amazing amount of work in less than 6 months on the development, and really, quite honestly, it's the location of the property, it's the growth of the university, it's the leadership of the university, it's the leadership of your city. We're just now beginning our discussions with the county. We have had some preliminary meetings, and the response has been equally enthusiastic. We will be asking for some TIF financing for the infrastructure. We have equally concerned. In fact, our first meeting with the mayor was, how are you going to do this without road infrastructure? We recognized immediately that Russell Street in the Cotton District is a significant part of of Starkville and its culture and community. I didn't even know that the mayor had substantial investments over here. But so I wandered into it rather blindly. And I said, Mayor, we really see Russell Street needing to be boulevarded and made into a significant boulevard. And he just laughed, and he thought I had prepared for that, and I really hadn't. I didn't know, quite honestly, who he was. So we're going to ask that the tax increment financing, and what that is, that's the taxes that will be created by the development above the existing taxes, be used to do the road infrastructure to improve the traffic flow in this quadrant, which I think everybody will admit on game day is pretty bad anyway. So that's going to be our request to the city. That will not go to any improvements on the site, the buildings or that. That $155 million, that's Mark's and mine. It will go to improve Russell, Spring, and we're going to ask for a slip route to go into this parking facility, because we'll have about 1,700 parking spaces on site, which will be accessed during game day, which I think everybody would agree is needed as well. Timing wise, we are going to our convention May 15th, which is a major shopping center convention. We hope we have grading plans done. We can be in drawings by as soon as October of this year. We would like to start construction in the spring of next year and deliver the building and the spaces by October of 2010.
Board members have any questions?
Lucian, can you talk to us a little bit about TIF financing? And I know Brooks touched on it, but just the concepts involved behind it. Because I know when you hear tax increment financing, some people think that it's a tax increase, and just go through for us what that means.
I'll be happy to do that. Tax increment financing is something our legislature authorized to local government, both cities and counties, some years ago, to encourage redevelopment of areas primarily within cities, to basically to put in public infrastructure that will enhance or redevelop an area. Here you have an area of your city that's basically has been deserted. A lot of that property is no longer in use or in minimal use. Way to encourage redevelopment. Today you collect X number of dollars of taxes on that property. What tax increment financing does, it allows you, once a development goes in place, is to take the difference between what's now existing taxes on that property and what will become added taxes on that property, and utilize that to issue bonds that will finance the public infrastructure. None of the money can be spent on private entity property. It has to be, quote, public infrastructure. So it allows you as a city to take monies that you don't currently have, but monies that will come in the future as a result of development, and utilize that to reimburse the developers for building out your public infrastructure. And that's a way to pay for it without adding any tax burden on any citizen in the city. Allows you to do it without losing any current tax dollars and utilizing increasing tax dollars as a result of a major development occurring like this.
Who guarantees the bonds?
Bonds are not guaranteed. When the bonds are issued, the only thing that is pledged is whatever increment is out there. So when you issue those bonds, there will be safety precautions for the bondholder. The city is not guaranteeing anything. The only thing you're pledging is that increment in income. You can pledge sales tax, increase in sales tax, you can pledge increase in ad valorem taxation to accomplish that. Typically, when the bonds are issued, in addition to reimbursing the developer for building the public infrastructure, the bond typically has enough money issued to get 1 year of debt service reserve. In the event revenues fall, then the bondholders have that precaution in there. Additionally, typically, you build in enough revenue that you got 120% of revenue to pay for 100% of the cost of reimbursing the bond. So there's added protection to the bondholders because you're actually collecting $1.20 to pay $1. So that's added. That money, if that happens, will build up over time, and basically the bonds can be retired at an earlier date than what you initially issue them for.
So in other words, these bonds would be sold on the market, and they're not owned by the city, and what pays that money back is the future sales taxes and ad valorem that's generated that would be new on that site itself.
That's correct. Now, the bonds will carry the city of Starkville's name on it, but you have a limited payment stream. It's whatever generated on that property from the new sales and ad valorem taxation.
So not taking anything from the current taxation, nothing from general fund, it's strictly about this development and the new taxes that are generated from it.
No, and generally what's looked at in the TIF plan is assuming that there may be some relocation of primarily of sales tax. That right now there's sales tax that exists from one side to the other of the city of Starkville. Is basically, rather than trying to capture all of that, we'll capture a percentage and assume that there will be some relocation. If I'm spending money at Walmart and there's another store over here and I decide to change where I shop, I go to one of these stores instead of Walmart, that's considered into what you're pledging, so that the city won't actually lose any existing revenue that you have in your general fund.
Lucian, I've been asked a couple times, well, why can't you use TIF bonds to build a new court facility? Can you talk a little bit about, TIF bonds are specific to increases in ad valorem or sales taxes, and why a municipal building doesn't generate new tax dollars?
Well, it's because you don't have tax dollars to get there. If you build a new public facility, then that's not generating the redevelopment of an existing property with new taxes, One of the things that it possibly could do is a portion of this could be used maybe on the second floor for community facilities like at city or county offices and all. And if some of those tax dollars were used to pay for that, then that could help go towards retiring debt that may be in this conference center on that second floor. But the bottom line is only X number of dollars coming in, and depending on what the final infrastructure costs are, you can only legally reimburse the developers for what's spent on, quote, public infrastructure. If that's the conference center or office space within there, that can be done, if there's sufficient revenues to retire that much indebtedness. So, there's a lot, I mean, the process is just starting. You will not be asked to issue these bonds before the thing is built out, it's complete, the infrastructure is in place, and you will know exactly how many new tax dollars are being generated on this 25 acres of land. You won't be asked to issue bonds before it's built, up and running and operating, so that the bondholders are protected, because there's a known value on the ad valorem side and several months of experience in sales tax, so you know what kind of sales tax it's generating.
How long are these bonds usually issued for?
Mayor, I work with municipalities that have gone as long as 22 years.
Okay, did I not hear you, Brooks, say that, the one that you did in Gulfport, you paid out how many years sooner?
We were amortized over 15, they paid out in 6.
Paid out in 6 years. You had asked that question earlier today.
Well, and again, that goes back to what I was talking about. You don't play, when you issue the bonds, you wanna make sure you're collecting more money than what's actually necessary to retire that indebtedness, so that the bond market's not gonna buy them if it's what we call a one-to-one coverage. When you issue the bonds, you'll look at the revenue, you'll pledge $1.20, and only $1 of it's gonna be retired to retire the debt. The rest of it builds up, you pay the bonds off early, as that money builds up over time. But it's also there in the event that sales tax are not sufficient, so that there is surplus building up, when times may be lean. Or you wouldn't be able to sell the bonds. You gotta show the bondholders that they've got a safe investment, or they're not gonna buy the bonds. You know, it's gotta show the bond market, I'm gonna get my money back, and I'm gonna get paid the interest that's owed to me on that. And the interest rate on the bonds are exempt from federal income taxation and state income taxation, for the simple reason that the bonds are being issued to acquire public infrastructure, not private use property.
In Market Brooks, can you tell us a little bit about the market from the sense of this is a significant development? Do you see multiple developments like this, one happening here, one happening in Columbus, another new one in Tupelo, or, this is, perhaps the one that will happen in the region for the next foreseeable future?
Before we go to that, if I could too, because I think it's a real important fact for the public to understand. Lucian, the developer never has access or control of any of those bond proceeds. Those, I think that's important for everybody to understand. That goes into the bond company, and there again, we actually have the privilege of paying for it, and then hoping that the bonds sell and the proceeds are there to repay us at some point. Alderman, to answer your question, that's why the timing and quite honestly, Mark's and I's willingness to be to the point in this project. I mean, we literally are to the point, for you all that have ever been involved in construction, we have grading plans. We can be ready for building permits by October, because there is a competing project over in Columbus, and at what we consider a very secondary site. One of the smart things that we always try to do is, rather than guess what the market needs, we hire the same market analyst that does the department store work for Belk's, JCPenney's, Bloomingdale's, and a number of the other soft good retailers. And Mr. Chapman's been in the market now researching. He started about 2 weeks ago. He's doing other work. Quite honestly, the site in Columbus or this site will be developed, but not both. And whoever gets to the department stores wins. We feel like we have a market advantage because of the location, the dynamic growth at the university, the dynamic growth in the technology and the research dollars that the university is generating, the growth in housing. Columbus is actually shrinking in terms of population and income. It's just the opposite here in Starkville. So we have the advantage. We have the advantage because the developers the retailers rather, they always question if a project's gonna be done, because they'll have $500,000 to $1 million in their internal plans to finish a department store if this becomes available. So they're always worried about dead deal costs. If they know we are where we are today with our architectural plans and our process, and if we are successful with this resolution and move forward with getting a TIF district established and get both the city and county approval, that puts us at a huge competitive advantage, very candidly. Because then the department stores, they haven't even got their first step done over at the Old Acre Newton McDonald site. And so I think it really comes down to, you know, quite honestly, we need your help at this point. You know, Mark and I have, you know, a remarkable amount of money in the project to get us to this point this quickly. We're committed to the development, and we're just to the point where, you know, this is this whole process really takes a unified effort with the university, the city, and the county to take it forward at this point, and that's where we are.
I had two questions about the development itself. How many anchor stores as opposed to individual shopping or individual shops were you looking at?
Our survey came back, we had planned, quite honestly, for more retail, but as the retail industry has gotten softer, our analysts came back and asked us, or prudently advised us to reduce it. So we think, that we'll end up with 2 anchors, and this will end up being a theater or another anchor. So it'll be a total of about 150,000 square feet, of which two will be anchors of probably 60,000 square feet.
Okay. Also, I saw that you had what looked like a crosswalk on 12.
Yes.
And I know that crossing there is kind of a hassle for people, even on game days when there's a lot of people walking around. What
Correct.
all was that going to entail?
That will entail us working with MDOT and with the Mississippi Department of Transportation, not MDOT, but also with Mississippi Development Authority.
Well, I meant like as far as what you actually had in mind. Were you talking about
It'll be a substantial structure with a walkover past, much larger than the facility that's over here on the north side of Russell.
Okay, so you're talking about a walk-in bridge kind of over it.
A walkover.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we visualize full boulevard over here, Alderman, where they're encouraging walking and connection between Cotton Mills Marketplace and the Cotton District with substantial landscaping and encouraging people to walk over between the university and the development.
Any other questions for me and the Alderman? Thank you, gentlemen, for a very good presentation.
Thank you for your consideration.
Are we ready to do a resolution?
Yep. Just introductory comments if you'd like to, either way. What this resolution does is it indicates our support and commitment to a $150 economic development project. And it's about 3,000 construction jobs. It's about 1,000 permanent new jobs for the development, in the development. It further establishes Starkville as a regional shopping and tourism hub, provides new shopping, new restaurants, new opportunities for both us as well as our visitors. And importantly, for our community, it's about expanding our tax base. We frequently have, and we know we have needs across the community that we frequently say we don't have the funds for. This is what our jobs are here to do, is to expand that tax base and to be able to afford those projects. And I think just as importantly, these funds will go to improve our current infrastructure. And that benefits us today, and it'll benefit us for the years to come. So these type of economic development projects don't come along every day, and we need to do everything we can as a board and as a city to lend our support and to commit ourselves to this, and I'm certainly prepared to do that tonight.
And Mr. Mayor and Board, and of course, I would certainly agree with Alderman Cox's summation of the situation. Sometimes you have to move when you have to move. I would offer then for board consideration a resolution declaring the intent of the city of Starkville, Mississippi to issue tax increment finance bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $8,500,000 for infrastructure and other capital improvements for a conference center redevelopment project, and authorizing and approving the reimbursement from bond proceeds of certain expenditures advanced for the purpose of financing said improvements in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds of the city of Starkville, Mississippi, to the extent of available tax increment finance bond proceeds.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, we will vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed? Jesus. It passes.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in health care.
You to approve a RFP for auto salvage. We sent that bid out back last month. We've got one response. It's gonna be with Auto Salvage. We're asking for three different changes to the standard contract the city has at this time. We talked with Rodney. Our three provisions would be that Algo does not carry a excess umbrella liability because it's not necessary for the conduct of their business, nor is it required by the state. He has currently $500,000 in auto liability instead of the $1 million, which is requested through our standard contract. And instead of property liability, they carry a general liability insurance in the amount of $300,000 per occurrence and $600 aggregate. The contract calls for $1 million each occurrence and $2 million on the other. We note that the general liability is premises liability only. We're asking for a change in that to accommodate Auto Salvage, because as we've come across, this is the only one that responded to our needs, and we're trying to accommodate him, because this is not a money changing hands between us or them. He's doing this as a service to us. Also, we're asking additional on item 10.1 that Algo does not prefer to mark up their towing vehicles for the pure, they're a private company, they're not a company for hire. Putting the signage on their vehicles is gonna be a note for a company of hire, which they're not. It's a private company. Also, we're asking that Algo will provide towing service at no cost to the city, and the owner feels that he should not be required to provide a performance bond to the city when there's no compensation by the city. He's doing this for service of us, so we're asking if we can get these three items amended through a new contract with the city attorney. And because if we don't, we're stuck in the same shape we were in before, not having someone to tow our salvaged vehicles to help beautify what we're trying to accomplish here.
Did you see the problem with these things?
Well, basically, what I did was draft a contract based on our policy that I do in every contract. I don't have the authority to give the okay for those things not to be included in this contract. Only the board can do that, so.
I understand that, but do you think that us giving the authority would put any
It would,
resistance
anytime you don't have the insurance there, there's liability potentially for the city, but you have to make a decision, just as you do with the mowing contract with the cemetery, whether the cost of getting it done is worth the risk that you take. So there's always gonna be liability when you don't require this type of insurance. If they're
Otherwise, we
acting on
don't
behalf.
get it towed, is that correct?
Yes, sir, if we don't compensate,
That we
it's not that much
accumulate
of a
junk cars
difference.
and
And we've already got them backing up because we don't have a service now.
any discussion amongst the aldermen?
The changes sounded reasonable to me, and
You willing to make the motion?
move approval of the agreement with Algo Auto Parts Incorporated to provide towing services to assist the Code Enforcement Division with the junk vehicle ordinance enforcement and would move that we allow the mayor to sign this contract.
We have a second?
And this is the contract that I'm with the changes that Mr. Lyles have requested.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Office City Clerk? Marquis, how you doing this evening?
Pretty good. How about you?
All right.
Mayor and Board, I have the claims docket through May 2nd. That's there for your approval. And Alderman Lincoln brought to my attention on page 17 for the airport that Ms. Joanne did come in today to void one of these. She said that they were going to go with another company. So we want to take that one off. But other than that, it's the claims docket.
So with those corrections, do I hear a motion to approve the claims docket, please?
And this would exclude the items for Park and Rec that we're not able to take out because of the systems issue?
Right, those were the, for Park and Recreation, the ones that were approved at the last board meeting that we had to put into play.
So you
So
got
we
to
wanna
sign them,
exclude
because
those.
my signature is not supposed to be on
No,
there.
no, they were approved at the last board meeting. So those 3 pages are, need to be excluded.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval of the claims docket excluding the pages that Ms. Outlaw just referenced, as well as the change to the airport expense item that you also mentioned.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Outlaw.
Thank you.
Brings us down to engineering and the streets. I believe, I haven't overlooked anything, have I? We want to talk about the authorization to accept the bid from Falcon Construction.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Board. In your packet, I included a bid tabulation. We had 2 bids last week. And we had numerous items that were included in the bid packet. As you can see, however, Falcon Contracting, as I recommended, it was lower in the items that we're going to most use, which are the bituminous items, the asphalt, patching, and overlaying. So it's my recommendation that we would use them as our main contractor.
You might tell them also that this is up twice what it was this time last year.
It is up, the price of asphalt is up nearly 50% from last year, mainly in part because, or mostly in part because of the rising cost of oil prices. So not only are we filling it at the pump, we're also filling it on our city streets too. So I would say that, as I indicated, the bids are competitive, and I believe that this is a fair price for the going rate. The alternative is to not accept the bids and hope that the prices go down, which nobody can tell if they will or not. So,
Do we have a motion that we accept this bid? Recommended by the city engineer.
Move that we accept.
I just had a question real quick. On here, you kind of put in grade items that were lower.
yes.
I noticed that on number 4, items A and B, the ones in gray were higher. I didn't know if that was just a typo or.
It is just a typo, and these are items mainly dealing with soil cement and that type of work, and it's not included in the project as programmed. So that is a typo. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion?
I'd be willing to move approval, that we accept the bid from Falcon Contracting for.
Do we have a second?
And Richard, are you declaring that to be the best bid received in response?
You're right, I apologize, that I would to qualify that as being the best bid received.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Second item, Mr. Edward.
As I've indicated in the revised the cost estimate based on these new prices, as best as we can foresee, and as you can tell, there's a substantial increase, mainly again towards the price of asphalt, nearly $120,000 in excess of what we were estimating. And so I would like to just discuss with the board about opportunities to still get this project completed, if the board so pleases. Either we can, eliminate some of the items on the project, or we can come up with other available funding.
Mayor and Board, I'd like at least the opportunity to work with the city accountant and Mr. Kemp to review some of the jobs that we've already completed. I know that a lot of the work was estimated based on using outside contractors, but the city actually completed much of that work in-house and resulted in some savings, and I believe we can identify an amount, I don't know if it'll be more than 120,000 or a little less, that could possibly allow us to continue to complete these street improvements that we approved earlier this year, because they were all high priorities, and I think it'd be exceedingly difficult for us to go back and say that one of these is not as important than the others, and if that would be all right with y'all, we should have at least an answer at the next meeting.
So you're referring this to the infrastructure committee or what?
Wherever, it's fine.
If we do have to have a meeting about this, because it could potentially affect all the streets in the city, I would recommend it be a budget committee, because that is the entire board.
That's reasonable.
Let's just take it under advisement.
I would like to
Analysis of it and have a budget committee meeting.
Would like to add that, as Alderman Cox indicated, we, from the fiscal year 06-07 capital improvement projects, we are doing a lot of that ourselves, and so potentially there are some monies that are available for that. And as soon as we really look at the accounting with a fine-tooth comb, see.
Well, we'll discuss it in the budget. Thank you.
Yep.
Ed? You ready to talk about the revision of the water leak policy?
Glad for it to go.
He was hiding back there in the wallpaper. He blended in with it.
Thank you, Mayor and Board.
You were bent over and I saw it.
That was on purpose. First of all, I was pleasantly surprised that when we wrote this policy from scratch about 2.5 years ago, and I was surprised it went 2.5 years before something came up where we had to come back and revisit it. But this situation came up because of some leaks we had out at Flex Steel, one of the industries here in town. There was some language in the policy as it exists now that exempted them from any kind of forgiveness or adjustments in their water and sewer bills. And if you look on the 2 pages attached to the cover sheet, the first page is in the exclusion section. There was a clause that excluded indoor leaks in non-residential, commercial, and industrial establishments, which basically, with that clause being in there, they did have an indoor leak. We couldn't move in their direction to try to help them out on that. And then on the next page, you'll see at the bottom in section 2.333, the policy states that the limit is 1 adjustment per customer per year. If y'all are familiar with Flex Steel's complex over there, they have several different buildings, on different sides of the street, and thus they have several different water meters. And strangely enough, they had leaks at 2 different locations, one outdoor, one indoor. So we would like to revise that to say, instead of per customer, just say per account. So if they happen in 2 different buildings or locations, then we could go ahead and use the policy as needed to adjust their bill. So
with those adjustments made to it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have questions?
Doug, per account, you mean per meter?
Per
Each
meter, right,
is-
yeah, yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, each meter has a different account number.
Well, I'll make the motion that we, make the changes recommended by Doug.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thank you.
That brings us down to executive
Mr.
session.
Mayor, a question for Ed Hadaway is, yeah.
Oh, he didn't get off the hook,
No, he did not.
and don't we need to approve the consent agenda?
We do.
items as well?
Mr. Hadaway, could you give us an update on the status of the light at South Montgomery and Lynn Lane and the problems being experienced by the loops and so forth, and where we are on that? Okay, we might take a look at the programming and timing of things. I continue to get calls, almost daily.
I'll get that program done tomorrow and, see how that works.
All right, thank you.
Can I add one to the list too?
Certainly.
Ed, would you check Airport Road and Highway 12 going north and south? It's very short if you're gonna turn left, leaving Airport Road going like towards Walmart. About 3 cars, maybe 4 can get out, and a lot of more traffic is coming through that area.
Bet it does. South wire down that way, right? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask Ann a question just
Sure.
for, how are we doing on the new service center?
I talked with the architect, on the first of the week, and, he's working on construction drawings now. He said I should have something next week, we're gonna have to look at.
And from that, we'd be able to go out to bid to get this thing built?
And I think you've been authorized to go on, get going with it. That's right. Do I hear a motion that we go to
Consent agenda first.
consent agenda, yes. Do I hear a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
Mayor and Board, motion approval of the consent agenda items as enumerated.
Would you like them enumerated
No.
again?
No.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Do I hear a motion that we move to closed session, discuss executive session, or the items in executive session?